I've got a friend of mine who has done nearly everything anybody could do. And he came to my office one day. He stomped in front of the desk and he sat down and he said, "I just want to tell you that I've left my wife and I am sick of the woman." He said, "I should have left her 15 years ago when I was in here talking to you. And I'm just telling you that I've left and I'm gone and I'm not going back." And I looked at him and I said, "Do you know the interesting thing about you is you're such a puss?" And he goes, "What?" And he stood up and he stood on my desk. He said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he walked around my desk and the guy just towers over me. And he says, "Mike, you know I like you, but you have a habit of pushing things too far. What do you mean?" And I said, "Brother, the test of a man is not in all the things that you've told me that you've done in your life, but the test of a man is taking up the cross, denying yourself and walking across the room and hugging and kissing your wife when she's made you this mad and offended you. Because I've done that." Well, he turned around and he stomped out. She called later in the week, made an appointment to come in the next week. They come in together and she's just beaming. And I said, "What's going on with you?" And she said, "Well, I just have to tell you what happened. It's the most amazing thing." She said, "I came home from my job, a migraine, I thought my head was gonna blow apart. I stepped in the door and my husband's in there wrestling with the kids, throwing potato chips at each other. And the stuff is flying everywhere and the whole house is a mess and there's nothing but screaming. I just completely lost it and stood there in the middle of the room cursing and screaming." And I said, "Well, what are you so happy about?" And she started weeping and said, "My husband usually when that happens just stomps out the door, says goodbye and is gone for 3 or 4 days. But what he did this time is he walked over to me and he put his arms around me and he held me close and he gave me a kiss and said, 'It'll be okay. You go lay down and I'm going to bring you some aspirin and we'll run out and we'll get something to eat and the kids will get the house cleaned up while you're laying down.'" And she said he held me and took me into the bedroom and laid me down on the bed and said, "I'll be back." And she's weeping while she's telling me this. And I looked over at him and here's this big guy who's climbed every mountain. And I said, "Brother, how hard was that to do?" And he goes, "Ooh, that was the hardest thing I've ever done." And I said, "But how did you feel?" And he said, "I have never ever felt that free." Taking up and denying yourself, taking up the cross and denying yourself is the most freeing thing there is. Because as long as another person's words or behavior can control your words and behavior, you're not spirit ruled, you're other ruled.